Welcome to the Be Here Now guest podcast. This series features a collection of teachings and conversations centered around mindfulness, spiritual growth, and living a life in balance. Each week, our diverse network of guest teachers and hosts offer up wisdom and practices from a different spiritual path and perspective. If you would like to support this podcast, please visit BeHereNowNetwork.com/donate.
Hi there, my name is Vincent Moore, and I'm the host of the podcast Paths of Practice, Conversations on Journeys into Buddhism. This is a series that features interviews with people that are sharing their experiences with Buddhism and Buddhist practice. The podcast includes conversations with people from a wide variety of backgrounds, from people that are just beginning their practice and exploring what interests them about it, to people that are longtime members of their sanghas and in leadership positions, and everyone in between, including those that aren't sure if Buddhism is for them, but want to know more about it nonetheless. This series is meant to explore the many different ways that Buddhism or Buddhisms can manifest for somebody on their personal path. And I feel like these conversations could be a benefit to somebody who wants to learn more about Buddhism and may or may not be considering incorporating more Buddhist practice or teachings into their life. Thank you for your interest in the podcast and for checking out the following episode.
Well, for the last 6 months, I've been recuperating from some major surgery I had back last year. So I haven't had a chance to get out in this last year too much. But in the New York area, it's very interesting. In North Carolina, it was kind of isolated for us because there's not a whole lot of Buddhism going around in the South. There is some, but it's sparse, as we can imagine in that area. But here in New York, there are a few more. And it's very different, I think, from what I've experienced in California. But it's good. I've been able to visit and teach at some of the centers here, Broken Zen Center, up at San Mauro at Mountains and Rivers Border, Dolores tradition. And, I get around, or I have in the past. So it's really good. And it's nice to see the differences in regions in America. That's going to be what's special about us.
Certainly. And I do want to kind of explore more of this too, because you've also explored different sanghas and different traditions in kind of the world over. You've also been to Europe and you've been to Japan, and you've kind of experienced practice in those different locations as well. But before I ask more about that, what is the experience like? At least just then, maybe specifically in North Carolina. I don't know if you've explored other southern states in America with practicing Buddhism, maybe specifically Zen. But what is it like to be a founding member of Great Tree Zen Temple and be a part of like the foundations of building a Zen community or like a Buddhist community in a place that might have more of like a Christian dominant or otherwise other faith tradition dominant space?
It can be very lonely at times. But it's also, how do I put this? Lonely. We're in the Billy Graham belt. And, not too far from where we are is the Billy Graham Center and all those sorts of things. And it's not so much that we are, in conflict with anybody. And in fact, we've had a lot of great friendships with people or other organizations in the community that are not necessarily Buddhist. And there are a few more there that Buddhists there that you wouldn't expect. Not very big Buddhist centers. Urban Dharma is there. Lost their name, but a Philip Keplow group is right across the road from us, from Great Tree. So, here and there are a few. And oddly enough, we get visits from other states. There's the folks in Georgia, Atlanta Zen group, and we get visits from them. So there is some exchange going on. A lot of exchange with the Unitarians, as usual. There you go. And but it's not the sort of crowd that you get with, if you're out in San Francisco or LA. It's very quiet. But it can be sometimes very isolated because of that. As I said, we've never had any difficulties with anyone or any other group that didn't want us there, not yet anyway, let's say. And it's a very quiet existence. And our Sangha is very small. It's usually people come and go, very small. It gets very familiar sometimes. But the people who have been around a long time, they're family. It's like having your family over for, New Year's Eve, ringing the bells and that kind of thing. So, in a sense, it's great because it's small. In a sense, it's frustrating because having to stay small means we don't get to practice the flow of the tradition in terms of ceremony and so on. When there's only 2 months in the building, you can't have a Ryuban. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, lots of adjustments, lots of I don't know, just being very small and simple. And when we have contact with other traditions, it's usually very, very friendly. Though I do say that our experience with the doing prison work, it's not so friendly, but we did it anyway. They let us in. So I don't know if that fully answered the question.
No, you absolutely did. You absolutely did. Well, just because we just approached the topic, when you work with the correctional facility, what did it feel like the organizers or the people that are on the that kind of more run the facility, or that's where you kind of felt that tension, or did you feel like with the people that you were working with within the correctional facility were hard to kind of breach?
Yeah, there were times. There's a certain how shall I say, dealing with the administration, forgetting what we need. Sometimes there was a little bit of discrimination in terms of what we were allowed to do and other, traditions faiths were allowed to do. And that was not just, Buddhist, but other non-Christian faiths, face the same sorts of, well, no, you can't do that, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Just getting cushions in so that the men could sit, long process. Getting books in, donated books. That was a long process. We did Jukai precepts, and they can't have Ratsus. They can't have Wakesa, they can't have anything. So the only thing we can give them are the lineage papers. and standing in front of a woman who is, she's doing her job, having to unfold those lineage papers so that they can see that there's no back. What do you think I'm going to put in here? And a sort of vague disrespect, of what we're trying to do. Though I do understand that they do have to do their job. And yeah, there's some folks out there that can be pretty shady and would do that with some lineage papers. But the feeling of it, and the feeling of the men, when they had to see this and watch this, and I'm trying to give them something with respect and, and welcome them into this practice.
Yeah, and to
Mm-hmm.
and to have, because from what I understand, lineage papers are a very intimate, ceremonial, important document that is between the teacher and the person that is receiving the precepts, and to have to unfurl that in front of somebody who is looking for contraband in it, or is otherwise going to maybe judge it. When it wasn't meant for anyone else's eyes, that's really hard, and that's probably one of many difficulties that you had to do when you were performing jukai for the people that were receiving precepts in the facility. But at the same time, what an amazing thing that you still stuck with it, and that not just were allowed to bring in some Soto Zen instruction into the facility, but you also reached some people to the point where they wanted to receive the precepts and they wanted to receive a Dharma name. They wanted to commit themselves to a path. And so you were able to really build a relationship with some people and make it meaningful for them. And then, what an amazing, but heartbreaking thing where they can't have the rakusus and they can't have the okesa and they can't have the different thing that kind of help someone maybe identify symbolically with what they're going through. It's a very unique, it sounds like, jukai experience. But I'm greatly appreciative of you still facilitating that and making it happen for them. It must have been very meaningful.
It was. I've been doing jukai with Teijo over the years a lot. She's the abbess of Great Tree, and so all jukais really are under her supervision. She is the preceptor always, and that was my first precept ceremony as a priest, leading that and presenting that. The first time my name goes to on those lineage papers as the teacher. And it was an honor to do that for them. And just to go back a little bit, it was kind of an opportunity for teaching to this young woman who was administrating, and the way to explain to her, I got a little bit of teaching in there. I don't know that it went anywhere, but she asked questions. She was at least considerate enough and thoughtful enough to ask questions. Oh, what is this? What does this mean? And to be able to explain to her and say to her, this is what we take seriously. This is the bloodline. Here's the Buddha. Here's his name. Here's Daishin. I gave him the name. Here's Daishin. And here is, this is where this leads to. And hopefully all of this, makes the world more better, for him, for us. Gives him a connection that maybe because of his disconnection, I forget what I said to him, is why he's here.
Wow.
And give him the hope that when he's through with his teaching here in this, harsh place in this prison, he can come out and then he'll have some context for making this boxer Yeah. And so it was an opportunity, as well as a harsh, painful sort of experience. It was also an opportunity for me, for him, and maybe even for this young woman just doing her job.
Yeah.
To have some understanding. So I'm no longer in North Carolina. I'm no longer at my temple as of 2020 when the pandemic hit. It's when I returned to New York and to my family. So I'm not able to do that, with them anymore. But that was one of the most important parts of my experience as a priest, was doing that volunteer work at the prison, meeting those men, and understanding that I am not much different. None of us are very different. Every one of us could make that one false move that tumbles us into that space. And, not too many people get the opportunity to visit a prison or really engage with people who have had this in their life and know. And I wish that were not the case. There's so much to learn there.
Certainly. And it's a really wonderful thing that you were able to have that experience. You're able to go and offer what you can offer, and to recognize the connection that we all have, and how close we are to each other, just as human beings, and how that one false move can completely change your life. It could change it for the best. It could change it for the worst. It can make it extremely complicated. So that, but thank you for sharing that. And now that you mentioned that you were back with your family in New York. Did you grow up in the New York area? Is that where you were originally from?
Mm-hmm. Born and bred in Brooklyn.
Oh, wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. And is that
bagels and real pizza?
Yeah. Absolutely. No, there really isn't. There's not much like a New York pizza, and there's also not much like a New York bagel too. I do miss those a great deal. When they come out of the oven steaming, it's just like something else. And as far as like your introduction to Buddhism, and did that happen while you were living in Brooklyn?
Yeah. Well, no. By that time, I was in college. My introduction to, meditation and Buddhism in general came in college. A little bit in high school, because in high school we read Hermann Hesse, Siddhartha. That got me interested and all that. But when I went to college, I had the experience of in a religion class where an Indian man was invited to talk about meditation and contemplative practice. And I'm not even sure what tradition he was from, but that kind of took me on that deep dive spin, oh my God, what is this? And I found what appealed to me was the meditation. And I don't know why, but in particular, the Japanese version of Buddhism, but Zen, appealed to me the way it appeals to certain people, to the point where they stick it on, the word Zen on their daggone restaurant. Need to stop to that. I'm really tired of But I've been there, and in, over the years, I found myself here in this. So it started then. And it really took when I found it was a sitting group, Soto Zen Meditation Society, long name, this little tiny group of people. And sitting with them and through them meeting my teacher, Reverend Munich, from the category tradition, and all of these little pieces that came together back in the late, 1989, 1990, 1991, around that time, and found myself here. So
Yeah. And
it was a pretty conventional sort of journey to this.
And it felt like meditation was like a major component of that kind of pathway. As far as just in approaching a Zen form, and I'm not entirely sure how Katagiri phrases it or how that approach is when it comes to sitting Zazen, but was there something about when you learn more about the philosophy or the mindset of Zen, the Shinkantasa, like, was there something about that felt particularly profound or meaningful compared to other meditation techniques that you had been exploring previous to that? And then also too, I mean, just to get into your meditation practice as you do it now, do you kind of bring in some other elements from other traditions or from other techniques into your Zazen approach?
Well, I think what most what I found most intriguing about it was its absolute simplicity. Katagiri just said, sit down, in the basics of it, close your mouth, sit down, and stop. And that was what was attracted to me. There was nothing to do. There was nothing to say. I mean, there's chanting and all that goes on in the activity around, the temple and Zen and the Zendo. That it's all pointing to the sitting and stopping. I had a friend once. He was very much into Tibetan Buddhism. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty. How colorful, and, I can respect that. Many people need those sort of things. But it was something that I felt would just capture me and tangle me up. I got enough stuff tangling me up. It has to be more simple than that. And the beauty of those traditions, I can certainly appreciate. And I can appreciate how they help, the folks who need those things. We all need a certain path, a certain way. Don't give me that, because I'll just make a whole kind of mess with that. And I can go, and that's, I think, what brings me here. Simplicity. And also the stopping. We were talking about this in a class my teacher doing online. It's like the stop is the same stop that the Buddha turned to Angulimala and said, "Stop it," you know. And my crazy mass murdering self needs that stop, like everybody else, you know. Just stop, and give it not just the breath, but the whole being to that stillness, that stop, and be in reality for a minute, you know, for 40 minutes. If you can handle it, 60 minutes, you know. Yeah, to be in that stop and experience it, and know there's reality. Everything else, you're making it up as you go along. So I need that. I don't necessarily, you know, like my temple, we do a lot of different things. We've invited many different teachers to engage with our Sangha as guests, and, you know, to allow people to know there are other forms. Especially since it's such a limited sort of choice down in North Carolina. It was very important to my teacher that, you know, people see. So we've had, you know, our good friend, Shohaku Okamura Roshi and his No Toys. Now that's a lot of fun. No Toys session. And we've had, our friends from the Thich Nhat Hanh group come and do session, and we're singing, you know, and beautiful and singing. And many others. You know, we have a young, we're no longer young. We've grown up together. A Tibetan nun who comes, and she doesn't lead. She doesn't want to lead retreat, but she comes and she sits with us. And the way of chanting that she has that we welcome. It's kind of different from geez, I am, you know, or grumbling, you know, it's a little bit different. And it gives it, I'm not looking for variety, but it gives it an openness. But in our day-to-day practice, it's very much Dogen, following the schedule, because that's what my teacher, that's her practice. That's my practice. And it's not simply just because it's what we know, but just like everyone else, this is how we grew up. You know, that's our home training. So here we are, and we share it with folks. She may do some tongling. You know, that's a very important practice for my teaching. So, yeah, we bring other things in. But pretty much she likes to stick to the tradition. And so do I, because not simply because it's important to me, but at this point it is a bodily sort of holding for me. And I feel it's a way of expressing that I've learned, that I feel I can share with people honestly, completely. Not just something I picked up and put on and said, "Oh, let's do this." You know, that's not how I work. So if you understand what I mean, it's not a discrimination against other people that find things in the world and in practice. But simply that's where I am. That's what I have.
Well, how special though that you have explored different traditions, and you have Great Tree Zen Temple incorporates a lot of different traditions into the building itself, and has a lot of exposure for people that are in a limited Buddhist space in North Carolina. And so, there's a lot more exposure to different things. And it's wonderful that there's that great tree kind of facilitates that. But at the same time, it's a really wonderful thing to hear that what you have found and what you have committed to within Soto Zen and how you approach it in your relationship with your teacher is so meaningful that it feels like it is really fitting your life in a very beautiful way, in a very authentic way. And so I'm just very happy to hear about that special relationship that you have with your practice and with your temple and with your teacher. And I think that having someone, whether in your sangha or otherwise, just someone that is that committed, it creates just such a beautiful platform to learn from. It's just to see somebody that is very rooted in a practice. You get a depth communicated to you that I think is, as someone that is learning, that is on a Soto Zen path, is just a really helpful thing to hear. And also too, I mean, just, you've been an active member of Great Tree for a while, and you are ordained priest, and you still take a lot of meaning in that. Just stop, sit down, and begin in this simple practice. There's something about that simplicity. It's actually, it could be quite difficult for somebody to sit still and to try to really be with themselves fully and bring their full self to their sitting. But there's something about that simplicity, about that direct order of stopping, that is still something that is holding meaning for you. So I just thank you for sharing that. Certainly. And I thought I had, and so there's something that is unique to Great Tree beyond just having a space for Buddhism to exist in the Sangha, to operate within North Carolina. But it is, I don't know if it still functions this way, but there is a women-only residency there, right? There's like a monastic or maybe semi-monastic element to it that is specific for women and those that identify as women that are provided space and resources for committing themselves further to a practice. And I believe that is also where you have done a lot of your training. What was it like kind of being in a space where the space was mostly made for women to explore this for themselves, while also being a space that, I guess, in other operating hours, all are welcome, of all ages. What was it like to also have that component where you are with women exploring this and committing with each other?
It was because I grew up with it. I don't know anything else, but it was. I want to say empowering. I don't know why I'm not satisfied with that word. The intent, my teacher's intent, was to provide a place where American women could freely develop their own spiritual path in this tradition. And she, in the 70s, late 60s, 70s, as Buddhism was growing, everything was pretty much controlled by the male component of whatever organization, community there was. And she had experiences in that she felt did not allow her to fully engage and develop, in the practice equally. having been Great Tree, as you say, is in the monastic or convent sort of situation. Only women are allowed to reside there as residents, as priests. But sesshin, all of our activities are fully open to both men and female, male and female. And very much I've always, experienced sesshin with a mixture of male and female. There's no particular, we've had a men's retreat, and we've had women's retreats. But they are kind of, special things that allow people to explore that for themselves. But I don't know that in terms of the general activities of it, that it's very different from any other place that is co-ed, mixed sex, but in terms of the day-to-day and taking care of the temple, making decisions about what goes on, it's fully the female that decides what happens there and what goes on there. And whether that's good or bad, it's a teaching of a sort for women to abide in that space of decision making, of learning how to hold the tradition in a way that is maybe a bit different than it would be if it were all male or, male led. I also had the opportunity to do practice period at the Misoto in Japan. That is a women's convent. Never worked so hard in my life because they are playing. And it's, that's where I really saw a difference in how male and female abide in this practice. When I was in other Ango practice periods, we use English here for those who might be a little annoyed at the terminology, but where it was a mixed practice period basically led by men, that was easy. Like all these rest periods and, all that kind of stuff. No. In a sense, part of it is because the women maybe felt they had something to prove. But at the same time, they weren't playing, they're not getting anything out of this except the practice. There's no, hierarchy where they would be, over male, in that hierarchy. In Japan is what I'm talking about. So, yeah. The diamonds are cutting to me. They were tough. And those were tough, long days. But some of the best practice I've ever done. I don't know that that's how we would express it here in the United States. In a Great Tree, I needed to experience that, I thought, because of what we were trying to do at Great Tree. I don't know that we have to. But I know that there might be some things that we're missing because we don't pay attention to what the female might bring if we don't explore that. Doesn't mean it's right, doesn't mean it's wrong, doesn't mean it's better, doesn't mean it's, anything. It just means that these are minds, bodies. This is dharma that we might be missing out on simply because of some social structure. As it is with any other, failure to include. What are you missing? So I don't know that explains all of Great Tree, in that position. But I think that's my teacher's intent, is to explore and to allow that to come out into the world.
Yeah, and especially that last point is very. To me, it feels very important to have this element where it's like the female body, the woman's body is a part of humanity, and if Buddhism is going to shed light on the interdependence and the connectedness and the shared elements of life through teachings and through practice, it can't only come from a structure that is more or less based in social histories or cultural contexts. It has to be open to that inclusivity, and it doesn't necessarily mean that one listening from the experience of one body is better than another, or the context is better than another, but that voice needs to have a platform. It needs to be shared in order to have a more in-depth experience with the Dharma and reach more people, and to have more people feel seen as they do it. And the practice that you did in Japan, it does sound like it was a remarkably different practice experience than you'd had before. That you not having worked that hard in your entire life. That discipline. Then you're talking about keeping to a schedule. It's like keeping to a schedule while you're fully exhausted. And I was curious about that element too, where I believe that work practice, like labor practice, beyond sitting on a cushion, happens when you were doing your training in Japan. Did the rigorousness of the work and the whether it's cleaning or the maintenance of the grounds, or the various things that you were doing there, was there a time when you were working in your mind or in your being that the sitting and the work kind of started to blend, where you really couldn't tell the difference between, in a mindset way, that maybe pulling weeds was not too dissimilar in a real felt way as that kind of shinkantaza? Or did it always kind of feel like things were so harried that you couldn't really tell the difference between the realities that you were kind of experiencing between the days even?
That's a good question. And maybe at first, I think my first experience of it was that it was so hurried and, oh my God, where we go next? Okay, off the tongue, bow. And that very first, few weeks were very much like that. That's why you have to stay for 3 months. You can't stay for a week. You don't get that in a week. But as the time rolls on, it comes, it quietens. You're on the tongue, and a few hours later, you're scrubbing the toilet. And the attention, that you give to that scrubbing and finding, not just, there's a sort of peace in scrubbing a toilet. There's a sort of connection in scrubbing the toilet because you really know why you're doing it. You're not doing scrubbing the toilet to get paid. You're scrubbing the toilet because somebody's got to use that thing. It has to be safe. It has to be clean. It has to not cause harm. And if I don't do this right, somebody could get sick. And it's not just me getting sick. And it's not because I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get sick. It's because my sister has to sit on that bowl. My teacher has to sit on that bowl. This is the Abbot's toilet. What an honor to do that. Not because she's even going to know who did it. It becomes slightly a ritual, though it's not, done in a ritualistic way necessarily. It becomes part of all that you do in the temple. It becomes part of what you do when you pick up the knife and cut up that onion, wash the dishes, place your shoes in the correct way. All of it becomes Dharma practice, not necessarily Zazen. And the way we take our busy, crazy energy to the cushion and have to figure out how to set it down. You get off the cushion and the understanding that, I put my feet on the floor into my slippers, set that down. Walking through the hall, it's busy. Rolls are firing, flapping. The drummers put that down. Senpai is fussing at me again because I forgot. Put that down and go do what you forgot. Why'd you forget? Because you didn't put stuff down in order to, smoothly run. And the smooth running of all that becomes the Dharma practice. You see where the dust is flying because you're not there. You can't just be there on the cushion, You have to be there when stuff is going on, because if your butt is stuck on the cushion because you can't, we're going to eat. So it's, I don't know how to explain that so well, because it's an experiential thing that's hard to express. When I try to encourage people to do that practice, it's hard to explain. Why would you want to get up in 4:00 in the morning in the cold and, run outside and ring a bell? Why would you want to do that? Because when you go out there in the cold and it stings your face and all your sisters are in there sleeping, waiting to hear that bell so that they can get up and start their day and make have the world move the way it needs to move. That's important. That's the Dharma. That's loving those people who are laying there waiting. And your bell opens their eyes. Your bell moves them through their day. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that wonderful? And the stars above in that cold sky, and that connection to all of that. Bang, do it. And I think that felt so lovely and true and filled me so much, that, and the understanding that I don't need to go there to find that experience. I just need to be here. I just need to be here. It's right here. And that's what that practice, what that training is meant to teach you. It's not meant to just teach you how to ring a bell. You can ring a bell. Anybody can ring a bell. Anybody can light a candle. Anybody can chant sutra. But can you do everything with that same fullness and awareness and connection? That's the training. That's the true training. So I don't know if I expressed it now, but, that's kind of, where I am with that and wishing it for everybody.
Wow, your recounting of that bell and that your experience with the bell to wake up your sisters at the convent. It's just such a beautiful story. It's such a meaningful story, and yeah, there is that conventional thing of like, first of all, why wake up at 4 a.m? Second of all, like, why would you go out in the cold to ring a bell and do all these different things? But when you move beyond those conventional comforts and you are being asked to do something alone, right? There's only one person, not like 10 people come up and start ringing the bell together. That would be interesting. That'd be very loud. Mm-hmm. But, that's one person goes out there, and here you are ringing a bell, and you're not alone, because the whole point of doing that is to wake up other people, to move their day, to begin the day in that way. And yet you're also surrounded by the stars, you're surrounded by you're feeling the cold, you're being embraced by everything. And then the vibrations of the bell also kind of echo forth and move about. And it just, you made like a very, what would on a certain level look like a very isolating practice or element of practice in that way was connection from the very beginning. I mean, there's almost like, there's no place to find it where you are not relying on, or in other ways, a part of someone else's day or practice from the very get. So thank you for sharing that. It's such a beautiful story. And I know we're starting to come to a close on our conversation, and I just wanted to take a moment to see if there's any cause or foundation or community that you would want people to learn about, to know about, that you'd want to promote, or anything that whether you're involved with or that you've heard about yourself that you want to get more attention brought to. And then also to separately, if there's any advice that you would give to somebody that's coming along the Buddhist path that you would have wanted to have heard at some point while you were coming up through it. So,
well, the first community that comes to mind is all of us. It's like, y'all, you see what's going on, but if you're talking in specific about those communities, all of them, my base is Great Tree. We've had our struggles, over time, and all Dharma organizations have their struggles financially, socially, ethically, all of those things. You need to take care of all that. And the only way you take care of that is to take care of each other. Being a part of Great Tree for all of my priests, growing up, I just had my 18th birthday. My anniversary of my ordination was in February, was at Great Tree. So of course, there's other places, Beacon Zen, Zen Mountain Monastery, Hokyoji, and all these places I've been and places that I haven't been. And we need to take care of each other as Dharma people. One center is not separate from another. Don't care who your teacher was or who founded it. Makes no difference. We Dharma together. Or there's no Dharma. So we need to take care of each other. I'm part of the Association of Soto Zen Buddhist. And that's a place where these all the Dharma centers kind of congregate in a organizational way. Support each other. That's all we need to do. That's what we're meant to do. In terms of what I would wish somebody had told me is, I wish somebody would have gotten in my face and say, delusional. What you doing? You're delusional. You're sitting on that cushion. La, 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 la. And every time I stood up, somebody would scream in my face, delusional, because you don't even know, and it takes a long time and to remind me that this is a lifelong practice. These are lives long practice, if you want to go there. And it takes that time. Just because you got to sew a ratsu and put it on, that doesn't mean a thing. You sew a big old okesa, that's nice. I've done that twice. Doesn't mean a thing. You can hang anything on your neck. You can wrap yourself in anything. But the true robe is the air that swirls around you as you walk through the world. You don't need that robe. It's already there. The mission is not in this piece of cloth. It's everywhere. Here, there, and everywhere. Beautiful. Here, there, and everywhere. Get out of your head. Open your heart. Drop that delusion of what you think you are and how good you think you are because you're doing all this. No. It's in the movement. It's in the ringing of the bell, It's in the, as you say, the connection of all that you do. You open the door like you're ringing the bell. You type up that letter like you're ringing the bell. You send that email. Think before you send it like you're ringing the bell. You speak to that child. You speak to, the girl at the cash register, like you're ringing that bell for all the Dharma, with all, and drop the delusion. And the other thing that my pet peeve, in Soto Zen, well, at least in American Zen, in our heady way, love, 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 love. Ooh, she said that. Dogan didn't say nothing about love. Yes, he did. Read it. Read it close. Read it and bring it close. My brother Dogan, I always, people think I'm being, disrespectful. Brother Kotama, Brother Dogan, baby Brother Dogan at this point, because I'm older than he got to be. Love, that's all they're talking about. And if you keep it in your head and you want to put all these fancy terms to it, and you want to use different languages so that you can hold it out here instead of right here, what you doing? Delusional. Yeah. So I wish somebody had shouted in my face all those times when I got up from the cushion thinking I had done something. for 40 minutes. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And a lot of that goes ties back to what we were talking about earlier with the Jukai in the correctional facility, where they weren't allowed to have the okesa, they weren't allowed to have some of these other things, and someone might feel like they're not fully committing or doing the practice if they don't have the garments, if they don't have those things. And not to say that those things aren't meaningful, but I really appreciated how you phrased it, where the real Buddha's robe or the Dharma's robe is the air that swirls around you as you walk through the world. I mean, that to me, talk about inclusivity. I mean, there you go. I mean, like as you walk the world, wherever it is, however it is, you experience the world and you move through it. That can be enough. That can be enough. That can be where that true connection is, wherever you are. So thank you. Reverend Chimyo, thank you so much for speaking with me today. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I really appreciated you sharing so much. And a very big congratulations on your ordination anniversary, your ordination birthday, 18 years. That's really wonderful. And yeah, thank you for taking the time today to speak with me.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me to participate in your project. I think it's wonderful. And yeah, do it, yo.